Hi guys, Toasted Gaming is back at it again, digging through the digital graveyards and neon-lit hallways of gaming history. If you're new here, welcome to the chaos. I've made a bunch of videos like this, ranking games built on an iconic engine. If you're new here, welcome to the chaos. I've made a bunch of videos like this, where I ranked games built on iconic engines, like the Source engine or Build engine. And if you wanna binge that madness, there is a whole playlist waiting for you on my channel. Go check it out if you're into older shooting games, Forgotten Shovelware, or just want to hear me trash talk about games that deserve it. But today, whoo boy, we're diving into the LithTech Engine, the tech that powered some legendary classics and also some of the biggest digital trash fires ever pressed onto a CD. Now, the LithTech Engine was developed by Monolith Productions, rest in peace, the folks behind Shogo, Mobile Armor Division, No One Lives Forever, and the almighty Fear. It was a pretty big deal back in the late 90s and early 2000s. It could handle big open levels, cool lightning effects, and eventually gave us Shadow of Mordor and its glorious Nemesis system. I was thinking if I should divide and make different videos for different versions of LithTech, but some of the versions don't have enough games. And then there are games that nobody even knows what version of LithTech they use. So we're combining them into one list, and I'll post it on blue bar of every game which version it uses if I know. So how did I decide who sits on the digital Iron Throne and who gets tossed into the bargain bin? Mostly, it's my opinion. Because, hey, that's how YouTube works. But I also checked out user reviews, critic reviews, and a few forum threads where people talked about them. Some of these games are just hard to find any info about. And listen, if a game's good, I'll praise it. If it's trash, I'm gonna say it's trash. Sometimes I'll do it politely, but not always. By the way, if you wanna join my channel, you'll get 1 week early access to videos like this. Everyone who joins also gets priority to their video suggestions, so if you're dying to see me rank every obscure gardening simulator, I might just do it. I'm that crazy. And of course, your name immortalized among the supporters who make these videos possible. Check the join button below. Oh, and if you're feeling chatty or just wanna meme about bad games with me and the community, come hang out on my Discord. Links in the description below. It's free, it's empty currently, I need you guys, and you know, let's talk. Alright, that's enough foreplay, let's kick off part 1 of my LithTech Engine ranking, where we'll go from the absolute bottom of the barrel, 78th place, up to slightly less crappy 61st. Grab your asbestos gloves, because some of these games are nuclear level disasters. Let's do this. Alright, dead last, number 78, and folks, it could only be one game. Crisis Team Ambulance Driver. Imagine if someone cloned Crazy Taxi, but replaced the taxi with an ambulance, stripped out all the fun, threw in physics that handle like a drunken hippo, and slattered it in graphics that look like they were drawn in crayon on cardboard boxes. This game has ear-splitting sound effects, controls that feel like staring a pregnant elephant on ice, and levels uglier than my last Tinder date. And the best part? It's so broken, it makes delivering people to the hospital feel like a war crime. Congratulations, Crisis Team, you're the worst LithTech game ever. Coming in at 77th place, we've got Gods and Generals, a Civil War FPS based on a movie nobody watched, made on an engine that deserves better. You'd think fighting in the Civil War would be intense, but not here. Here, you march in slow motion, fire single-shot rifles that feel like Nerf guns, and stare at levels so brown and boring they'd make a third jealous. The AI is spectacularly brain dead, and sometimes the only way to tell who's an enemy is by whether they're moving. And enemies don't move that much in this game. There was zero passion put into this. Developers just got license for the movie combined everything they had for a week and put it on a disc. On a shelf. Gods and generals, more like dumps and dumbers. Next. At 76th place, it's Nina, Agent Chronicles. This one's for all you fans of barely functional Eastern European shovelware. Nina's supposed to be some badass secret agent, but in practice, she runs through giant empty levels shooting at dumb enemies who spawn like they're popping out of clown cars. There's no crouching, no leaning, no picking up enemy guns, and the voice acting sounds like an Australian trying to fake a German, trying to fake a British accent. It's like linguistic inception, but terrible. Plus the game's unique mechanic is mind reading, except you do it by punching people. You can't shoot them, you have to run up and slap the secrets out of them. Nina, honey, you deserve better. But this game sure doesn't. Sliding into 75th place, we've got Arthur's Quest, Battle for the Kingdom. Now, let me be clear, I love a good fantasy game, but this ain't it, chief. Arthur's Quest is like someone watched Lord of the Rings once and decided, hey, let's do King Arthur, but make it look like garbage. Half the game takes place in identical forests, filled with invisible walls, enemies that get stuck on mushrooms, and rivers that apparently function like acid pits. Combat? Don't bother, your sword swings will miss half the time, even if you're practically making out with the enemy. And the smart strategy is just running past everything, while building a giant conga line of monsters following you. The only reason it's not dead last is because it's kinda hilarious to watch. But that's not a compliment. Rolling into 74th place, it's MTH Rail King Model Railroad Simulator. Okay, there's a lot of people who love trains. There is nothing wrong with good virtual railroad. Building tracks, running locomotives, all that geeky stuff. But Rail King? This one derails faster than Thomas on bath salt. So here's the deal. You can design your own tracks. Build stations, slap down scenery, and watch your trains go choo-choo. There's even 40 missions, a tutorial, and then encyclopedia. Sounds solid, right? Except everything's painfully limited. Compared to trains, this game is like trying to run a modern railway with a wooden toy tracks. The controls are clunky, the graphics look like someone textured the world with grey carpet samples, and the trains themselves feel lifeless as hell. It's not the absolute worst, but it's about as exciting as waiting for a delayed commuter train in real life. MTH Rail King tried to bring model railroading to the PC and instead gave us a virtual boredom simulator. Choo-choo indeed. Let's move on. At 73rd place, we've got Western Outlaw, Wanted Dead or Alive. Yeehaw, partner! Or actually, yeehard pass. Imagine a Wild West shooter where everything looks like it's been rendered in wet cardboard, and you'll get the idea. Enemies walk around like they're on invisible treadmills, gunfights feel like you're throwing spitballs, and voice acting is as bad as it gets. There's no charm, no style, just endless shooting galleries, and music so repetitive it'll make your brain leak out of your ears. This ain't Red Dead. This is dead dull. At 72nd place, it's the legendary disaster known as Mistmare. This game is basically what happens when medieval monks take a massive bong rip and decide to make an RPG. It's set in an alternate Europe ravaged by a magical mist. And trust me, you'll wish you were lost in that mist rather than playing this train wreck. Combat is broken, quests are bugged to hell, and crashes happen more often than in a drunken demolition derby. And let's not forget the permadeath system, because nothing says fun like dying to a glitch and losing everything. Mistmare is proof that sometimes medieval Europe should just stay lost. 71st place goes to Army Rangers Mogadishu. Sounds intense, right? Wrong. This This game is just a random budget shooter, bland environments, copy-pasted terrorists, and AI that couldn't outsmart a Roomba. Your missions feel like you're on a low-budget movie set, blasting endless bad guys who stand there waiting to be shot. The guns have zero punch, and every level is basically a corridor painted a different shade of beige. If this was supposed to honor real army rangers, well, I'm filing a formal apology letter on behalf of the game. Landing in 70th place, it's Vietnam 2, Special Assignment. This game is basically Vietnam Black Ops wearing a slightly different hat. They recycled the same levels, slapped a 2 on the box and called it a sequel. The only difference is that it uses newer version of the engine, so it looks better. But that improvement has nothing to do with developers' work. You sneak around blocky jungles, shooting enemies who stand there like mannequins at a military surplus store. The graphics look like a moldy camouflage pattern, and the guns sound like someone spitting into a coffee can. It's so generic, you'll forget you're playing it while you're still playing it. Vietnam 2, more like Vietnam Special Disappointment. Speaking of disappointments, 69th place goes to Vietnam Black Ops. This one's legendary. Legendary for how cheap it feels. Imagine a jungle made out of green construction paper, enemies popping out of nowhere, and weapons that sound like they were recorded inside a shoebox. The AI? Let's just say I've seen more tactical thinking from my toaster. And half the time, you'll get stuck on level geometry that looks like leftover Lego bricks. It's short, ugly, and the only Black Ops operation here is trying to erase this game from your memory. At 68th place, we've got Combat Zone Special Forces. Now, let's give credit where it's due. This game tried to go full multiplayer, the only City Interactive game to ever do that. You've got factions like SAS, SWAT, Spetsnaz, terrorists, all blasting each other across 15 different maps. There's deathmatch, domination, capture the flag, the whole buffet. Sounds cool, right? Well, no, there's so many problems. Most important one is that there's no single player, no bots. And a game that nobody knows about, it probably died in the first week. Just like other City Interactive games from the same era, this one, it just feels like mod for Fear, and not a good one. It's a clone of Fear actually. So unless you've got friends willing to set up a LAN party and tolerate janky graphics and clunky controls, you're basically stuck in an empty server alone. Combat Zone, it wasn't the worst idea ever, but City Interactive from that time, it was just sad looking at what they made. Speaking of City Interactive, in 67th place we've got Armed Forces Corp. This one's got all the classic hallmarks of Eastern European shovelware. Janky animations, bland levels, and enemies who politely stand still while you line up your shots. Gunplay feels like spraying a garden hose. The sound effects are recycled from every other City Interactive game, and mission objectives are about as thrilling as reading a tax form. It's not offensively broken, it's just painfully mediocre. And the worst part, you'll forget you played it before you even uninstall it. At 66th place, we've got Mob Enforcer, Chicago, in the 1930s. Tommy guns blazing, wise guys in fedoras. Sounds cool, right? Too bad Mob Enforcer manages to suck every drop of fun out of Prohibition-era gangster life. This game has stiff animations, gunplay that feels like shooting rubber bands, and levels so repetitive, you'd think Al Capone was hiding in an IKEA showroom. And the voice acting? It's like they kidnapped random dudes from a bus station and forced them to read mob cliches into a tin can. Mob Enforcer wanted to be Mafia, but instead, it just feels like a mod, a total conversion for No One Lives Forever. Marching at 65th place is March, Off-World Recon. Okay, first of all, why the exclamation mark, game? Calm down. This is a sci-fi shooter where you're supposed to save a mining colony on a distant planet. It's not Red Faction, but it mostly involves wandering around endless bland corridors and shooting robots who look like they're made of leftover vacuum cleaner parts. The levels are so bland, you'd think you're in one of the Hell's Kitchen episodes tasting shitty early episode food, and the voice acting is hilariously over the top. It's like a dollar store Duke Nukem. It's not offensively broken, it's just boring as hell. Sliding into 64th place is Navy SEALs, weapons of mass destruction. Yes, another budget military shooter, with a title longer than the game's runtime. You play as a Navy SEAL on a world tour of brown hallways and flat terrain, blasting terrorists who stand perfectly still like they're posing for passport photos. I think it might be one of the worst FPS games I ever played. And why is it in 64th place? Because it's so bad it's good. It's one of the worst games that I consider best of the worst or whatever. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just so fun to play this with friends and while you're drinking. So thing is, the guns feel like staplers, the enemies have the intelligence of soggy toast, and the level design is about as inspired as a cardboard box. If you don't like games that are so bad they're good, maybe just watch some Navy SEALs documentary. At 63rd place we've got Wolfschanze 2. Now, let's get one thing straight. I love a good World War II shooter, but Wolfschanze 2 is not among them. You play as a Polish saboteur, sneaking through Nazi bunkers, but the sneaking part is optional, because you can run past half the enemies and they won't even notice. Gunfights feel like you're tossing spitballs, the animations look like they were made by interns, and the voice acting sounds like it was recorded in someone's bathroom. And despite being released in 2011, it looks like a game from 2001, and it's running on same LithTech version as Fear 1. This game is like 10 years late to the party, and still no one wants to dance with it. Coming in at 62nd place, we've got Terrorist Takedown 2. Now, look, there's cheap shooters, and then there's this. This game is basically one long shooting gallery where you mow down endless waves of terrorists who run at you like you were TV on Black Friday. The levels are flat, the missions are repetitive, and the graphics are so bland they'd make oatmeal look spicy. All the guns sound like cap pistols, and half the time you'll die because enemy appear out of thin air like cheap jump scares at a haunted house. It's not offensively broken, it's just so damn boring. Terrorist Takedown 2? I wish this game was actually taken down by terrorists. And best game of part 1. At 61st place we've got Sniper, Path of Vengeance. Okay, so buckle up. This game's a weird one. You're some buff tattooed dude named Sniper, busting out of prison to take revenge on everyone. Sounds cool? Well, don't get your hopes up. But combat feels like shooting water guns at mannequins, the enemies talk non-stop with cringy one-liners, and the environments look like they were copied and pasted from an abandoned hardware store. And the voice acting? Chef's kiss. It's so hilariously bad, it's almost worth playing just to hear these grunts yelling "freaking die!" every 5 seconds. This game tries so hard to be edgy, but ends up as a glorious train wreck. It's not the worst LithTech game, but it's definitely one of the weirdest. Kicking off part 2, at 60th place, we've got Alcatraz, Prison Escape. On paper this sounds badass. Break out of the world's most infamous prison. But in reality, it's like trying to sneak out of some, I don't know, kid's ball pit. The stealth is clunky as hell. Guards spot you from a mile away, or sometimes not at all. The environments look like they were textured with leftover oatmeal, and the animations make it seem like your dude is wading through molasses. It's technically playable, and different than a lot of the games that we've seen before on this list, but it's also so repetitive and lifeless. you'll start rooting for the prison guards to just shoot you and then you're suffering. This is one prison that I don't want to escape. At 59th place, we've got World War II Sniper, Call to Victory. This one tries to cash in on a World War II sniper fantasies, but it just comes off more like a high school history project with a BB gun. The levels are tiny, which is awful for a sniper game, the graphics look straight out of 2001, and your sniper rifle sounds like a soda can popping open. Enemy soldiers either spot you instantly or ignore you entirely. Do you see the trend here, guys? There is no in between. Plus, the stealth sections feel about as subtle as dropping a toaster in a bathtub. It's not unplayable, but it's also about as exciting as reading a supply list from 1944. Sliding into 58th place is CTU, Marine Sharpshooter. I didn't even check what CTU stands for. I don't care. It's just another budget military shooter that's about as stealthy as me after coming late at night from a club. You're a sniper, supposedly sneaking through dangerous terrain, but mostly you're running down corridors, blasting waves of identical enemies. They're not really corridors, but they do feel like ones. The graphics are bland, the levels are generic, and your spotter shouts the same lines over and over until you want to shove him off a cliff. It's not the worst game I've played, but it's definitely the cheap version of Medal of Honor. At 57th place, we've got Elite Forces, World War II Iwo Jima. World War II shooters can be amazing. I love them. They used to be my favorite type of FPS games back when I was a kid. But Iwo Jima is basically a shooting gallery with palm trees. You charge down beaches, gunning down enemies who just stand around like they're waiting for a bus. On a tropical island, the levels are painfully linear, the gun sounds are laughably weak, the enemy AI is so dumb, it's practically non-existent. It's technically functional, but there is zero excitement, zero spectacle, and definitely zero Medal of Honor vibes. So if you don't care about budget, military or World War II shooters from 2000s, maybe go to like 4th to last game, because that's all we're getting here. At 56th place, we've got Elite Forces World War II Normandy. Look, another World War II shooter, but in this one, you're storming the beaches on a budget of $5. You're dropped into D-Day missions that should feel epic. We've all seen Saving Private Ryan, right? But instead, it's a corridor shooter basically, with enemies who stand around waiting for you to blast them, like in every other game. The weapons feel weak, the levels have zero excitement, and the AI has the tactical skill of a loaf of bread. Only good thing in this game is that allies win. Sneaking into 55th place, it's TNN Outdoors Pro Hunter 2. This one's a hunting sim, but it somehow manages to be less thrilling than sitting in an actual tree stand for 8 hours. You're dropped into generic forests, aiming at deer who either bolt the second you blink or stand there like taxidermy. The graphics look like someone smeared green paint on your monitor, and the gun sounds are about as satisfying as shaking a maraca. Unless you're desperate to relive your uncle's hunting stories, skip this one, just like every other game on this list you've heard before. At 54th place, we've got another Elite Forces game, Elite Forces Navy SEALs. Yet another cookie cutter budget shooter, where you're supposedly an elite operative, but you end up running through hallways blasting enemies who look like they're moonlighting as mannequins. It's getting hard for me to write scripts for this, cause all of the games are the same. They're not among the worst games, like in our previous part, but they're all still garbage. I don't know what to say. Levels are bland, the guns feel like airsoft toys, and the enemies either stand motionless or run straight at you like they're desperate for a hug. Still a trend of this video. It's functional, but it's also the gaming equivalent of eating plain toast. Well, at least it's better than that Navy SEALs Weapons of Mass Destruction game. Try to say the name of that game 5 times fast. Coming in at 53rd place, we've got an old friend. Remember Terrorist Takedown from previous video? Well, we've got a third game now. Now, look, I'm not expecting game called Terrorist Takedown 3 to be good, but still, come on. It's same formula. Corridors, endless waves of terrorists, and shooting galleries with a personality of stale cardboard. I'm rating this one higher than second game because it's way shorter, and that one was already very short. And actually, I have to say, guns in this one look okay, which is surprising, but they still feel weightless. Enemies soak up bullets like sponges, and the mission objectives are recycled more than your local paper bin. Overall, it's same game as second, but it's 2 times shorter, but it feels like it was a little bit more polished. But that's like saying you'd rather stub your toe than break your leg. It's still painful to play. At 52nd place, we've got Code of Honor 3, Desperate Measures. So, this one's about the French Foreign Legion, which sounds badass, right? I've seen that movie with Van Damme where he was from French Foreign Legion. That movie was great. I don't remember the name. Tell me the name of the movie in the comments below, guys, if you've seen it. Except this game feels like it was designed during someone's lunch break. You're running through narrow hallways, blasting waves of enemies who spawn out of nowhere. Like, I don't know, maybe they're coming with an assembly line, a line of terrorism. The gameplay has zero punch, the graphics are strictly budgetier, and the story is basically shoot dudes because reasons. It's not offensively broken, just painfully generic. Desperate Measures? More like City Interactive, why were you so desperate? Marching into 51st place, we've got Battlestrike, Shadow of Stalingrad. And it's another World War II shooter, because apparently LithTech was contractually obligated to produce 50 of these damn things. On paper, it's about sniping and sabotage in Stalingrad. In reality, it's corridor after corridor of shooting identical soldiers who can't see you unless you're 2 feet from their noses. The gun sounds are pathetic, the levels are copy-pasted ruins, and it's so repetitive, it feels just like every other City Interactive game we've seen yet. At 50th place we've got SAS Secure Tomorrow. City Interactive, welcome back! Now here's a game that desperately wants to be Rainbow Six, but ends up being nowhere close to that quality. You're an elite SAS unit, storming buildings, rescuing hostages, all that tactical jazz. Except there's nothing tactical about it. You just kick down doors and spray bullets like a budget John Wick. It feels like a mod for fear. Again, the AI is dumb as a sack of potatoes, the gunfights feel weightless, and every level looks like it was designed in the same grey factory. It probably was, but not in the factory, but still. Sliding into 49th place, it's Code of Honor 2, Conspiracy Iceland. Look, I'll give them credit. Conspiracy Iceland sounds cool. It's kind of like a subtitle for a Bourne movie. But unfortunately, this game is not cool. You're back in the French Foreign Legion, shooting your way across generic jungles and military bases. The enemies run at you like they're trying to catch a bus. The levels are as linear as a plank, and the voice acting sounds like it was recorded in someone's laundry room. It's a slightly more colorful than its predecessor, but it's still like gaming equivalent of lukewarm instant noodles. You know, edible, but it's not anything memorable. Crashing into 48th place, we've got Terra Wars, New York Invasion. Now this game is garbage, it's trash, it's shit, but it's my kind of crap, because it's so bad it's good. Aliens invade New York, and it's epic. Why? Because it feels like a shitty low-budget sci-fi movie that Even though you know it's bad, it has the charm. You run around generic city streets shooting extraterrestrials who look like they're wearing rubber Halloween masks. The voice acting is laughably bad. The gunplay feels like squirting mayo on a hot dog. And the story? I don't know what was happening in it, but I wanted to see more. And plus it's playable. Well, barely. But that's enough in this situation. Sliding into 47th place, it's Fear Online. And god, this hurts. It's because, you know, original Fear, it's an absolute masterpiece. You're gonna see it later, obviously in part 4. But Fear Online, it's a pure cash grab disappointment. It tries to slap multiplayer onto the franchise, but ends up with generic shooter modes, clunky mechanics, and a horror atmosphere about as scary as a Scooby-Doo episode. The game is dead. It's no longer with us. The gunplay is hollow, the maps are bland, and the microtransactions were lurking like Alma herself while waiting to devour your wallet. Fear Online, more like Fear Offline, where it belongs. At 46th place, we've got more tier, Operation Thunderstorm. So here's a game that's just like every other City Interactive game before. You're a super soldier on secret missions to defeat the Nazis, but the storytelling is incomprehensible. The levels look like they were built in a weekend, probably same weekend as Battlestrike, and the gunplay has all the weight of shooting water guns. Enemy soldiers either spot you from a mile away or stand around scratching their heads, and every mission feels like a recycling bin of World War II cliches. I don't even know why is this one higher than Battlestrike. I think level design is a bit more enjoyable, but barely. Marching in, at 45th place, we've got Royal Marines, Commando. Now look, I respect the Royal Marines, but they deserve better than this. This game drops you into World War II missions that should feel heroic, but instead you're running through the same drab corridors as in every other City Interactive game. You blast enemies who pop up like cardboard targets at a shooting range. The graphics are bland, the voice acting is stiffer than we called bread, and the gameplay is about as thrilling as folding laundry. It's playable, there's nothing really terrible with it, but there's zero reason to remember it. At 44th place, we've got Marine Sharpshooter 2, Jungle Warfare. So here we go, back into the budget military trenches. This time, it's tropical. You're a Marine sniper plowing through jungles packed with cardboard enemies who either ignore you completely or see you through a wall. It's still a trend. The guns still feel like plastic toys. The voice lines loop until you want to drown yourself in mosquito repellent, and every mission is just move forward and shoot. It's slightly more colorful than its predecessor, but it's still basically a jungle themed wallpaper paste. Sliding into 43rd place, we've got Disney Atlantis, The Lost Empire, Search for the Journal. We're finally getting something different. I was so tired of same game just with different graphics again and again. And I mean, look, it's Disney, so at least it's not horrifyingly ugly. But gameplay wise, you're wandering around collecting journal pages, solving super basic puzzles, and engaging in action so mild, it might as well be a yoga class. It's aimed at kids, so obviously it's not trying to be an FPS masterpiece. But holy hell, it's still so dull, it'll make your eyelids heavy. I tried it and it was fun for 5 minutes, and then I was done. But it still got my attention for a bit longer than some of the games we heard about previously. Coming in at 42nd place, it's Disney's Atlantis, The Lost Empire, Trial by Fire. Another Disney game, but this time with slightly more shooting, but it's still about as hardcore as an Earth War. You're controlling Milo and friends, blasting goofy monsters in levels that look like leftover movie sets. The visuals are colorful, the music's fine, but the combat has zero impact and the missions all blend together. It's functional and definitely more of a game than Search for the Journal, but it's still basically a theme park ride in video game form. Kids might enjoy this for a bit. At 41st place, we've got Might and Magic 9. This one's a real heartbreaker, because the Might and Magic series is legendary. I love Heroes of Might and Magic. Third game, second game, fifth game was pretty good. Never played any of the newest ones. But this one, it was first time I played Might and Magic first person game, except for Dark Messiah. And oof, they switched to the LithTech Engine, and it's like the entire world fell apart. The game is buggy as hell, with NPCs floating, geometry glitching, and animation stiff enough to give you a cramp. The RPG systems are still there, but the magic is gone, and it's no fun with just might. The game is playable if you're a hardcore fan, but for anyone else, it's like watching a noble knight slip on a banana peel in game form. It makes sense that it was the last 3DO first-person Might and Magic game. Okay, we're starting with Rubies of Eventide, the MMORPG that looked like someone accidentally ported a tabletop RPG into the LithTech Engine, without even reading the manual. Released in 2003, it tried to be an open world, turn-based fantasy MMO before that combo was even remotely ready for prime time. You had stats, skills, medieval gear, and enemies that looked like knockoff EverQuest rejects. But hey, it was free to play, at a time when most MMOs wanted your soul and your mom's credit card. It had a cult following, but that's mostly because it was one of the few MMOs running on a potato back then. This one hurts a bit. Legends of Might and Magic could have been Heroes meets Counter-Strike, but instead, it's like someone at 3DO saw Unreal Tournament once and said, yeah, let's make that, but worse. No joke, the RPG elements are practically non-existent. The classes feel like costume changes, and the maps, pure mid. It's not offensively bad, just wildly generic. Like a medieval FPS that couldn't decide if it wanted to be Fantasy Quake or just shovelware with a franchise name slapped on top. At least it had LAN support, so it gave early 2000s college dorms something to do. This one came out in 2012 and looked like it was coded during a Project X type of party in 2003. District 187 was a free-to-play tactical shooter with gangs versus cops vibes, and a title that sounds like it was generated by an Xbox Live teenager in 2007. The gameplay? It was clunky, but weirdly fun. Maps, bland. Guns, also bland. It tried to build a ranked esports scene, but let's be real, the only thing this game killed was your graphic card's dignity. Still, it had some charm in its chaos, and you could also play dress up with your character, like you were prepping them for a crime-themed fashion show. This one is kind of a weird gem. Gun Griffon, Allied Strike, was a mecha FPS exclusive to the OG Xbox. Yeah, we got console exclusive LithTech game. It puts you inside a giant mech with just enough HUD clutter to make you feel like a real pilot, and missions where you blow up tanks, choppers, and occasionally your own hopes. It's not super polished, but there's a cold gritty vibe to it that kind of works. The controls are dated, the missions get repetitive, but if you've got a thing for slow, stompy 80-ton war machines, who knows, this one might actually satisfy your inner Steel Battalion fanboy, just without $200 controller. If you ever wondered what would happen if someone tried to make Bejeweled, but gave it the energy of a rave inside a washing machine, Super Bubble Pop is your answer. You play as a DJ character popping bubbles to loud techno beats. And somehow, this psychedelic fever dream runs on the same engine used for tactical shooters. Respect, I guess. The gameplay is simple. Match colors, drop bubbles, but the presentation is so chaotic, it feels like it's trying to melt your retinas. Honestly, it's not bad. It's just aggressively mid. But hey, at least it's unique. In a what were they smoking kind of way. Next up, we've got Mini Golf Master 2. The game that makes you wish you were playing actual mini golf. In traffic. During a thunderstorm. This thing has the physics of a drunken person and the sound design of a broken Tamagotchi. But here's the twist. It's barely hypnotic. There's something endearing about its barely working UI, untextured courses, and the kind of music you'd expect to hear on hold with your local insurance scam hotline. It's bad, don't get me wrong, but it's that grandma bought it on clearance kind of bad that still manages to charm in a budget bin sort of way. This game was supposed to be the edgy, over-the-top FPS where you battle demonic freaks while channeling the power of Kiss. Yes, that Kiss, the band. And while the marketing screamed, hell yeah, the game itself whispered, the guns are fun, the enemies are weird, and the levels look like they were inspired by Doom 64 or something similar. But the combat's repetitive, the difficulty curve is bizarre, and half the time you forget it has anything to do with the band. It's like a Kiss branded acid trip that's somehow both too much and not enough. It has cult classic vibes all around. This one came way too late for a LithTech game. Ryan Fire dropped in 2015 and looked like it teleported straight from a 2006 LAN cafe. It was a free-to-play multiplayer shooter with fast-paced combat, jetpacks, and the kind of UI design that screams early Steam trash. Surprisingly, it plays okay. You could dash around, ball run, and get into some decent team shootouts. But let's be honest, the servers are long dead, the monetization was forgettable, and the player models look like the NPCs from a cancelled PS2 game. Still, props for being the last gasps of LithTech trying to stay relevant in the era of Overwatch and CSGO. With a name like Tex Atomic's Big Bot Battles, you expect either a Saturday morning cartoon or a fever dream from a Mountain Dew commercial. And honestly, it's a bit of both. This is a multiplayer mech arena shooter where giant robots duke it out in a destructible environment. And it's got this quirky, almost satirical vibe that makes it feel like Twisted Metal's awkward cousin. The combat's decent, and the environments are surprisingly fun to wreck, but the controls feel like you're trying to steer a fridge during an earthquake. Still, for a game nobody remembers, it had some genuinely cool ideas buried in the junk. This one is weird. I couldn't find any footage of this game. No videos. Basically, what if Quake 3, Deus Ex, and a philosophy major had a child and raised it in a basement? You'd probably get purged. This obscure multiplayer shooter mixed sci-fi, religion, and RPG elements in a way that's either genius or completely unhinged. You picked classes, earned experience mid-match, and upgraded your abilities as you went. Which sounds amazing, until you remember the hit detection was more like misdetection, and the player base disappeared faster than in a free-to-play new MOBA game from 2024. Still, it was ambitious as hell, and surprisingly ahead of its time. A relic of early 2000s PC experimentation. Die Hard, Nakatomi Plaza. It lets you live out your John McClane's fantasy in all its barefoot glory, and for the time, it wasn't half bad. You play through the entire Die Hard movie, rescuing hostages, duct crawling, and yelling yippee at everybody. The gameplay is a bit stiff. The AI is about as smart as Hans Gruber's henchman after a bottle of vodka, and the visuals aged like a banana. But there is real heart here. It's faithful, fun in bursts, and it was absolutely fueled by 2000's action game energy. One of the better beater license shooters of the era, and the guilty pleasure of many. Repulse is one of those games that sounds like a rejected Call of Duty mode, but it's actually a Korean multiplayer FPS that tried to mix sci-fi parkour with Twitch-based shooting. Think Titanfall without the titans or polish. Movement was fast, gameplay was frantic, and some maps were honestly kinda fun. But the overall vibe screamed free-to-play shovelware. It had microtransactions, awkward translation, and a very loyal fanbase for a hot minute, before it vanished into the void. Not terrible by any means, just painfully average in a sea of better shooters. But still, for a 2013 LithTech game, it held its own surprisingly well. Imagine being the prequel to No One Lives Forever 2, a beloved cult classic with humor, charm, and slick design. And when deciding, what if we removed all the things people actually liked? That's Contract Jack. It's a straight-faced dumbed-down shooter where stealth is illegal, enemies charge like lemmings, and every mission feels like it was assembled during lunch break. It's not horrible. The gameplay is functional, the pacing is fast, and it's got some cool moments. But compared to the series it came from, this one's the weird cousin who shows up to a reunion already drunk. A spin-off that never needed to exist. Sanity is what happens when you mix Diablo, X-Files, and late 90s nu metal. You play as a psychic agent voiced by Ice-T. Yeah, really, the rapper. Using mental powers instead of guns. And it's as wild as it sounds. The power system is actually super inventive. You collect and combine abilities like cards, and they can do everything, from stunning enemies to nuking rooms. Problem is, the game plays like a twin-stick shooter wrapped in a janky third-person shell, and the pathfinding, let's say, spiritually lost. Still, it was bold, stylish, and totally unique. A flawed gem, but a gem nonetheless. Face of Mankind aimed for the stars, and it barely got off the launchpad. This was a massively multiplayer RPG with a fully player-driven economy. It also had politics, factions. It was basically EVE Online, but in third person, and even more chaotic. On paper, it sounds incredible, but in practice, it was a buggy mess with a UI of a spreadsheet and gameplay that bounced between revolutionary and please let it end. But there's no denying its ambition. The fact that a LithTech-powered MMO tried to simulate an entire society is impressive alone. It never fully worked, but it left a mark, and a few devoted players who still sing its praises. Finally, a game for those who think Myst was a little too mainstream. Mysterious Journey 2 is a first-person puzzle-adventure game built in the LithTech Engine, and surprisingly, it's beautiful. The world's atmospheric, the puzzles are smart, and sometimes cruel, and the story has that classic sci-fi isolation vibe. It's a thinker's game. No guns, no combat, just you, your brain, and some of the most bizarre alien tech you've ever seen. Sure, it's slow-paced and a bit stiff, but if you're into immersive, cerebral exploration games, this one's worth checking out. LithTech does Myst, and kinda works. If Gears of War and the free-to-play Korean MMO merged and then forgot they did it, you'd get Hounds, the last hope. It's a cover-based third-person shooter mashed with MMO RPG systems. You get loot, upgrades, co-op missions, PvP, all wrapped in a grind-heavy cash shop laden package. The shooting actually feels pretty solid, and there is a weird charm to its post-apocalyptic tone. But the monetization was aggressive, the balance was questionable, and it eventually shut down, like many free-to-play titles of its era. Still, for a game using LithTech Jupyter X in 2016, it looked shockingly decent, and tried something different. Rest in peace, you weird forgotten thing. Plot 2. It was supposed to be the dark messiah of edgy late 90s shooters, but instead, it was the buggy, rushed cousin of Monolith's other classics. The humor is still there, the gore is plentiful, and Caleb remains a top-tier one-liner machine. But the AI is dumb, the levels are clunky, and it never captures the brilliance of the original Blood. It had cool weapons, also creepy monsters, and ambitious storytelling for its time. But LithTech was still young, its first LithTech game, and it shows. It's a cult hit with diehard fans, but even they'll admit it's more fun mess than FPS masterpiece. Here's a little title you probably never played, unless you were a PC cafe regular in Asia. Hit Project was a tactical multiplayer FPS that basically combined Counter-Strike and America's Army, slapped in some class-based systems, and sent you off to shoot terrorists and each other. It was big in Korea and China for a while, and surprisingly competitive, with solid map design and responsive controls. It must have been very popular, because there's even a remake on Steam that is dead. Original lacked the polish of the big western shooters, but it scratched the itch for military realism with a bit of LithTech flair. A hidden hit overseas, even if it never made noise in the West. Yes, there was a Lord of the Rings MOBA, and it was not bad actually. Guardians of Middle-earth brought the 5v5 lane pushing formula to consoles with a full Lord of the Rings skin. You got Gandalf, Sauron, Legolas, all brawling like it's Summoner's Rift. The controls were streamlined, the visuals were solid, and it actually played decently well for a console MOBA. And also it was the first ever MOBA for consoles. Sadly, it launched with bugs, server issues, and it didn't build the community it needed. It's been long forgotten, but for a brief moment, LithTech powered one of the strangest and most interesting takes on Tolkien's universe. Not amazing, but definitely memorable. Combat Arms was that free-to-play FPS you either poured hundreds of hours into, or deleted within 10 minutes after seeing the shop prices. Reloaded tried to clean up the original's reputation, and in fairness it kinda did. New visuals, better netcode, less blatant cheating, well, mostly. But it still felt like putting makeup on a corpse. A fun twitchy shooter at its best, just buried under years of pay-to-win baggage, and a player base that peaked in 2009. Still, for a LithTech Engine game, it was surprisingly smooth and weirdly addictive. Before Counter-Strike became the king of tactical shooters, Global Operations was out there trying to do it all. Multiple classes, objective-based gameplay, loadout customization, and even voice chat in 2002. It was ahead of its time, maybe too ahead, because nobody really played it. But for those who did, it was gold. Clunky as hell now, but you can absolutely feel the ambition. This was the prototype for so many modern shooters. If this had dropped 5 years later, it might have been a franchise instead of a fossil. This was supposed to be the future. A full MMO continuation of the Matrix trilogy, with storylines approved by the Wachowskis themselves, real-time events, and agents who could jack in and wreck your day. Instead, it had buggy combat, janky movement, and a tutorial so bad it made the red pill feel like a mistake. But damn, the vibe was there. The lore, the world, the trench coats. It felt like the Matrix. It didn't play like it. Still, it earns the spot for ambition alone. And for being one of the few MMOs where Morpheus can die in a death-driven event. This is where LithTech decides to go full artsy sci-fi puzzle adventure. Sentinel is like Myst. If it met I Divine Cybermancy, you don't even know that game probably. Watch my source engine ranking. But this game did look like it had effort put in. There's no guns, no enemies, just weird alien ruins. There's also dimension shifting puzzles and a main character who sounds like he's forever stuck in a radio narrator mode. But it works. The visuals are solid, the puzzles are clever, and the atmosphere is genuinely unique. It's not for everyone, especially if you came here looking to shoot something. But for fans of cerebral exploration games, this could be a gem. Guys, have you ever played Counter-Strike and thought, hey, it's a great game, but there's one thing missing: werewolves. And Wolf Team heard you loud and furry. This is the game where you switch between gun-toting soldier and claw-swinging man-beast mid-match. And somehow, I don't know how, but it kinda works. The gameplay was serviceable, the Wolf mechanics added chaos, and the maps had a good vertical flow. Sure, the game eventually drowned in hackers and microtransactions, but for a while, Wolf Team was pure cracked out joy. If you ever screamed while drop-kicking a sniper off a ledge as a werewolf, you know why it's here. It's that one Batman game without Batman. Gotham City Impostors is what happens when the dev team gets blackout drunk and someone says, hey, let's do Call of Duty, but everyone's in cosplay. And they actually nailed it. There's homemade gadgets, absurd weapons, and fast-paced mayhem in a world where everyone thinks they're Batman or Joker. It was weird, hilarious, and genuinely fun. Sadly, it got buried under Warner Bros. Mismanagement and shut down way too early. Still, it was one of the few free-to-play shooters that deserved better, and absolutely one of the most original LithTech experiences ever made. This was the original. Before Reloaded tried to fix the mess, Combat Arms was the Wild West of online shooters. It had solid gunplay, a decent engine, and a grind that made you feel like earning one red dot sight was your life's greatest accomplishment. But the real story? Hackers. So many hackers. You couldn't even load into a match without someone speed hacking across the map, like we were Sonic on Muff. And yet, we kept playing. Because deep down, Combat Arms had something. Janky charm, maybe? Or maybe Stockholm Syndrome? Either way, it earned its legacy. You like Counter-Strike? Sudden Attack said. Cool, let's copy that and make it even sweatier. This game dominated Korean internet cafes for years and built an esports scene before most people even knew what that meant. It's fast, it's brutal, and it's got that signature LithTech fun crap, polished enough just to feel right. Weapon balance? Questionable. Community? Unforgiving. But mechanics-wise, it was surprisingly tight. It never took off globally the way it should have, but in its home turf, it was a beast. And it still slaps today if you're into no-frills, twitchy gunplay. Before Monolith was scaring the pants of everyone with fear, they dropped this insane fusion of mech warrior and 90s anime, Shogo gave you fast-paced FPS combat and giant robot shootouts, all wrapped in a story that tried to be deep, but mostly just made you go, wait, who the hell just died again? It was buggy, and it was janky, but damn, it was also so fun, with explosive weapons, alternate endings, and style for days. The cult classic walked, so future Monolith games could sprint, scream, and possess people. You gotta respect first ever LithTech Engine game. One of the most played FPS games in the world, even if you've never touched it. Crossfire took the Counter-Strike formula, slapped some militarized anime skins on it, and then exploded across Asia like a tactical nuke. It's simple, addictive, and somehow still going strong decades later. Yes, it's also filled with hackers. And yes, the graphics aged like milk. But it absolutely dominated internet cafes. And it built an empire in places where Call of Duty barely registered. Whether you love it or hate it, Crossfire is LithTech's most globally successful child. Imagine, Condemned 1. But this time, you're an alcoholic with hallucinations. And everyone wants to fight you with pipes. Condemned 2 ditched subtlety and cranked the batshit dial to 11. Less detective, more deranged brawler. The sequel had brutal melee combat, a warped narrative, and some of the most disturbing enemy animations of its era. It's not as focused or tight as the original, but it's way more unhinged. If you've ever wanted to uppercut a homeless demon in a bowling alley, this was your game. And that beer chase? I don't think I'll ever forget it. This was Monolith trying to recapture the magic of the original Fear. And they almost did it. The slow-mo gunfights were still crisp, the atmosphere was thick, and Alma was creepier than ever. Especially when she got, antsy. But it's also more console-friendly, and it's less terrifying version of its predecessor. Still, it delivered plenty of cinematic shootouts, disturbing moments, and one hell of an ending. It's not as innovative as the first game, but it still outpaces most horror FPS hybrids to this day. This game was terrifying in all the right ways. Condemned puts you in the filthy blood-stained shoes of an FBI agent tracking down a serial killer through abandoned buildings, sewers, and crackdowns that make Detroit look like Disneyland. What about the combat? It was visceral and brutal. What about the sound design? It was masterclass. What about the mannequins? Well, fuck those mannequins. One of the best horror launches for Xbox 360, and a high point in LithTech's legacy. This game slapped you with a rusty pipe and then made you think it. This game did the impossible. It made all 3 campaigns, Alien, Predator and Marine, actually fun. AVP 2 lets you skitter through vents as a xenomorph, cloak and impale dudes as a Predator, or panic and shotgun everything as a Marine. It nailed the vibes of the films, and the multiplayer was absolute chaos in the best way. It wasn't the prettiest game. I wouldn't say it was that pretty even at launch, but the gameplay, tension and variety made it a fan favorite. And let's be honest, it did the Alien franchise more justice than half of the movies. Yep, this is the last version of the LithTech, Firebird, the only game to use it. Rest in peace, Monolith. So this game, it was bloated as hell, but it was also the most ambitious LithTech game ever made. Shadow of War refined the Nemesis system into something genuinely addictive. It gave us huge battles and let us build our own damn orc army. It stumbled a bit with its grind and microtransactions at launch, but once those were cleaned up, the game revealed its true potential. If you ever wanted a Lord of the Rings game that feels like Total War meets Assassin's Creed, this was it. And it was damn good. This game did everything right. It stayed faithful to the 1982 movie, introduced a beautiful neon-soaked world, and had one of the most stylish art directions in early 2000s FPS gaming. Tron 2.0 made you feel like you were inside a computer, with digital weapons, system upgrades, and a world that just looked cool as hell. The story was also solid, and the atmosphere unmatched. Also, the gameplay loop was surprisingly deep. It's an underrated classic that deserved way more love than it got at release. Kate Archer is what happens when you blend James Bond with Austin Powers and make her 10 times cooler. No One Lives Forever delivered slick 1960s spy vibes. It also had clever humor, killer gadgets, and actual stealth gameplay that worked. The writing is sharp, the missions are varied, and the LithTech Engine was pushed to its limits at the time. It's criminal that this series is stuck in rights hell, because this is still one of the best FPS games ever made. Period. Shadow of Mordor came out of nowhere, and it absolutely slapped. The combat borrowed from Batman Arkham, the open world was gritty and immersive, but the real MVP was the Nemesis system. That one mechanic made every playthrough feel personal. Orcs remembered you, hunted you, and sometimes shamed you into rage quitting. It turned generic enemies into unforgettable rivals. This was a turning point for the LithTech engine, proving that LithTech is not going anywhere. It's staying here, and it's still beautiful. A sequel that took everything great from the original and cranked it up. Better visuals, better AI, better mission design. No One Lives Forever 2 is a damn near perfect blend of stealth, humor, and spy thriller. It had snowmobile chases, katana duels, Soviet ninjas, and some of the most charming dialogue in gaming. It still holds up today, and like its predecessor, it's a tragedy, because more people haven't played it. Kate Archer deserved a trilogy. Instead, she got copyright purgatory. This is it. The crown jewel of LithTech. Fear is still one of the tightest, most satisfying FPS games ever made. The combat is ridiculously fun. Every shot, kick and explosion hits like a truck. Enemy AI is smarter than half your teammates in modern games. The slow motion mechanic never got old. And the horror? Alma doesn't need jump scares. She lives in your head rent-free. The atmosphere, action, and technical polish were revolutionary. Fear didn't just use the LithTech engine, it owned it. It's a masterpiece. And that's it. We've officially reached the top of the LithTech mountain. From shovelware swamp fires to absolute legends. We ranked every single LithTech game that ever existed. And somehow, I'm still alive to tell the tale. If you've made it this far, you deserve a medal. Or at least a strong drink and a long nap. But don't get too comfortable. More videos are coming soon. I'm working on so many videos at the same time, but obviously priorities on the engine rankings. And it looks like it might be Unreal Engine too, but we'll see. So if you enjoyed this video, do me a solid. Smash that like button. Tell me which positions you'd change in the comments. I know you've got opinions. Drop your suggestions for future videos. I do read them. And subscribe, so you don't miss whatever chaos I cook up next. And if you want to help fuel these videos and get something back, consider joining the channel. You'll get early access to new videos, priority on your video suggestions, and your name immortalized in the credits with the legends who keep this channel going. And now, it's time for me to thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one, whatever that next is. Toasted is out. Goodbye.